All right, so the question we're going to address now, how do you account for the fact that in this virtual environment, people may quite often be more subdued and maybe not gesture as much as they normally would in person?
If you're used to interacting with someone in person and you're used to seeing a particular behavioral baseline, it might be a cause for concern, or you might consider it a cause for concern if you see different behaviors online. However, people tend to have quite a different behavioral repertoire online anyway, compared to in person. That's perfectly normal. It's an uncomfortable medium for a lot of people, or it's just a different medium. So we take it as a different baseline. Try not to compare too much that person's behavior as you would usually see them in person. Compare it to what you would usually see as their virtual baseline. Also, people tend to be more subdued and exhibit more anxious behaviors at the start of a virtual interaction, and they wear off as the interaction goes along because they get more comfortable. If those behaviors don't wear off, that's likely their baseline. If it's quite a comfortable conversation, there's a lot of rapport, but you're still seeing those anxious behaviors, that typically will be their baseline. If you see the behaviors dramatically change or increase, that's where it's a cause for concern. Just as we are interacting in person, when we're interacting virtually, it's in real time. So we take the behaviors as they come to us. It's a different medium, so we take it as a different baseline.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's also, I like what you said about recognizing a change in behavior.
Yeah.
Right? And it can, as you said, it can be, maybe something of concern, which again, one of my favorite lessons in nonverbal communication is if you do notice a change in behavior or some kind of nonverbal cue, don't just go to making a judgment about it, but pause and maybe ask a question that has been informed by that behavioral change.
Yeah. So it's not so much the behavior itself that's of importance, it's that behavior in the context of when it occurs.
Yes.
Does that behavior change occur after a certain question?
Yes.
In person, it's exactly the same as online. It doesn't matter if that behavior itself is different, it's the timing that's of importance there.
Absolutely. And it can also be something potentially positive, right?
Yes.
A cue of increased interest, for example, right?
Yeah.
Right. And as a follow-up to this question, right, I think one of the trickiest things people encounter virtually is that unless they hide their self-view, which is one of my top hacks, right? You don't need to be looking at yourself, but right, like it's a big distraction to see yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would suggest the same thing. Don't look at yourself because it is unnatural. Again, it's too much stimuli for us. In person, it'd be the same as someone holding up a mirror. That would be very, very uncomfortable and it's not normal.
Yes.
So if, hide yourself or just have yourself really, really small in the corner.
Yep.
Don't have yourself really big to check on your own behaviors, because then you're not going to be interacting authentically because you are going to be distracted.
100%. 100%. That's my top, always my top tip is just like hide this up. You can do that in Zoom, you can do it in Google Meet. Just make sure you confidently show up, right? And in your lens, and you have a general awareness of where you should be physically. And then once you're confident with that, like you don't need the reference. It's just a distraction.
Yeah. I think it's useful to have a small square of yourself just so you can see, maybe you want to check that you're still within view and a good space. But I definitely agree, remove the focus off yourself.
Or shameless self-plug here, you could use a tool like the Sidekick, which will nudge you if you're ever out of frame or doing something that's really not helping you out. So
absolutely.